Bienvenue à tous mes amis et les volontaires du nord de l'Ontario. Merci pour venir à Sudbury pour le summit de le hockey NOHA. Welcome to all, and thank you for being here today. It's great to see also people like Drew Bannister and Craig Duncanson and Paul Harrison and my old teammate Mike McFarland, wherever you are, Mike, over there, and a few other people that I may have missed. I apologize, but it's great to see you guys be here and give back to the to hockey and the community. So thank you for being here. Bob Allen, great job in putting this together. What a great turnout. You know, it's the first one, and you made this summit a reality. So congratulations to you and your board and the committee. So excellent work. Thank you. You know, we're all here basically, and I probably speak on behalf of the guys that I mentioned as well, because of you people in this room and people like you that have helped us, volunteers that have given so much of their time and efforts to be here, to be a part of a player's dream and helping a player realize an opportunity to a dream. And, you know, I think about my own background, like you've heard some of the stories about Mike Foligno and this and that, but maybe you don't know about my whole background in the sense that I, growing up in the city of Sudbury and playing my first few games in Garson, Ontario, we moved to finally moved to a place that actually was across the street from a skating rink. Actually, even in Garson, I lived across the street from a skating rink. And I don't know if this was a predetermined thing by my father, but he actually built a house on San Francisco Street down here in New Sudbury. And it was literally open up the living room drapes, and there's LaBelle Playground right in front, and all the lights are on, and you know, it was like heaven, you know. And so I obviously took to the game of hockey. So you know, it was something, I guess it was meant to be. But seeing players play the game and not really knowing how to play, and watching older players, players that kind of knew a little bit more, were at a higher level. The first time I really was exposed to it was when I was watching IBEW, a local team here. It was kind of like a travel team. And another team was LaBarge Lumber. I think they were midgets. Danny would probably know. But so first time seeing a team like this and seeing everybody with the same color socks on. You know, like, it was unbelievable. And now you don't even think about it today. But in our day, it was like, wow, the team is like uniforms. They got the same socks on, all the guys, and they all, you know, there's no holes in them. It's unbelievable. And so, you know, that showed me a lot about, you know, what is there, what's available. But I have to tell you, I tried out for a couple of those teams. One was McIsaac Mining, and I made that team. Then the next year, I did make the team. I got cut as a peewee. And I had a, you know, volunteer come to my house, talk to my mother, which was really difficult because my mother spoke Italian. And so he was talking to her about me coming back to play, and she's there, yeah, sit down, have some more pasta, you know. And so finally he convinced her that it was a good thing for me to go back to play, but she didn't like it because she didn't like the fact that I either had a cut or, you know, a bruise. And, you know, Italian mothers, how they are with their boys, they got to protect their boys. So I almost did end up going back to play because of her, but he convinced her because he was a great caring volunteer. So I ended up going back to play. Then in Bantam, I was cut by IBEW, I believe it was, and again, a volunteer, manager of the team, comes to the house, and the same ritual, you know, sit down, have some pasta, we'll talk after, and convince my mother, hey, you know, we like to have Mike come back as well. And that was Donnie Stack, who passed away a few years ago. But Don Stack came to the house, and he married an Italian, so my mother liked him because he married an Italian and allowed me to go back to play. But in the neighborhood that I lived in, I had older players that, you know, I looked up to. I had Ronnie Moores, Gary Moores. I had Mo LeBray, who lived up the street, who was a professional hockey player, played for the Washington Capitals. There's a number of people that kind of brought me along. They, you know, if the lights were on at the rink, they would, you know, give me a call and say, Mike, come on over, you know, play with us. You know, and I was just a smaller guy, little guy, and maybe some of the other guys in the room may have gone through the same kind of thing as well. But you get an opportunity to play with these guys. And first of all, you're excited about playing with them, but then you're also realizing that you got to catch up to them. You got to keep up to them. And they didn't push me down, they dragged me up. They made me a better person, a better player. And they made me realize that I could be better, I could be faster, I could be more skilled, and I could start to do some of the things that they were doing. I also had a great opportunity, and the reason why I'm saying this is because whether you're a boy or a girl, if you really want to be the best in this sport, and that's for all the coaches and parents in this room, you've got to allow that individual to see the game played at the highest level. You've got to be in a position where that player can realize, wow, I can really be as good as Ovechkin. I can really be as good as Gretzky. And not so much maybe just seeing them on TV or hearing them on the radio, but actually seeing someone perform at that level up close. And I was really fortunate because I had a few Sudbury Wolves players that were billeting next door. And so I got a chance not only to, see how big and strong they were, and I was just in awe of how big and strong they were, and they were only 16 and 17 years old, but also that, they had a mustache, and they actually would come on the ice with us every once in a while and throw the puck around and whatnot, and we could actually touch them and talk to them. It was phenomenal, But what a great feeling for a kid. And you know what, sometimes as parents, as volunteers, we get caught up in the business side of it, and we forget that what that kid is thinking is, oh my God, I watch him, I listen to him on the radio, and there he is. Oh, he's right in front of me. Like, they're freaking out. They love this stuff. And why? It's because they idolize these people because these are good role models. And that's the importance of, the older players that are playing the game. Be good at what you do. Do good in what you do, and be a good role model because there's always somebody watching. There was an old saying, I think it was Joe DiMaggio. Someone asked him, Joe, why do you play so hard every game? He says, because there might be somebody watching me play in the stands for the very first time, and I want them to know that how good Joe DiMaggio is. And so that impression has got to be with all the professionals that are in this room, making sure that we do our part. The leaders in this room, the managers, the coaches, we lead by example. And if we show we care, they will care. And it's always been like that, and it'll always be like that. And we can never forget that about what the kids are thinking, the boys and young girls that are playing this game. You heard Barry McKenzie talk earlier. I was scouted by Barry McKenzie. He's the guy that actually kind of discovered me. And I was playing for their farm team, and he came down to call up a player or two. And Brian Fram, I don't know if a lot of people know Brian Fram, but his son just passed away recently, Jordan, and so we go back a long way with Brian. Jordan got involved in a mining accident at Valley Inco here about a month ago, but so our thoughts and prayers go out to the family. But Brian Fram was actually the guy that Barry McKenzie came to see and call up. And, you talk about getting a break here and there. Well, kids need a break here and there as well. They get opportunities, but you also need a break. And Brian Fram got hurt that game. And I ended up scoring 2 goals that game. And Barry McKenzie came in the dressing room because Brian Fram was a right wing. He needed a right winger. He called me up, and I got my first opportunity to play for the Sudbury Wolves. So you need a break every now and then. And, those are things that I think that happen as well. But they happen for a reason. They happen because you are dedicating yourself 100% to the game, and when you are, good things do happen to you. When I was drafted by Detroit Red Wings, and I have a lot of patience as a coach with players, and it's sometimes very hard to do, but you need to have patience. You're entrusted by the parents of those kids as a coach and general manager of the Sudbury Wolves. I took it upon myself to take that responsibility that parent was dropping that kid off under my watch, and my job was to protect that kid, make sure that kid was safe, but make sure I treated that kid like my kid. And that kid got the best of everything. My full, evaluation, my full concentration, my focus, my dedication to making him the best player that he could possibly be. And I thought that was really important. And I can't imagine how, in Detroit, I was playing with a player by the name of Peter Mahovlich as my centerman. that for a month I could not put a pass on Peter Mahovlich's stick because I was so excited about playing for Peter Mahovlich. And I just think back at all the patience that man must have had to play with me and tell the coach, it's okay, don't take him off my line, don't send him down, let him play with me, you know, he's going to learn. And then later realizing that it wasn't my bad passing, it was Pete's bad skating. And then they gave me Dale McCourt, and Dale was his dad's brother, and Dale fed me all season long for 36 goals that year. So it was awesome. My rookie year, scored 36 goals and great feats from Dale. So Dan, thank Dale again when you see him, okay? You know, a lot of great things happen, obviously, as a player, and I'm sure the guys have a lot of stories. I'm sure you all do, and I just like to, you know, retell a couple of stories as well. When I got traded to Buffalo, a few years later, first of all, I got a chance to play with my childhood hero, and you know, you talk about childhood heroes. Gilbert Perreault was mine, and I ended up playing with him for about 7 years as my centerman, and just a real rock of a person, a master of the game, incredible skill and drive. And even today, he still plays in some charity games all across the country. So if you get a chance to watch him play, he really is a treat. And he's not a bad singer, apparently, too. So every once in a while, he grabs a microphone. But we were in Detroit, and we were playing a game against the Detroit Red Wings. And Mike Hartman was one of our in-house tough guys, you know. And his father was a photographer for Detroit Red Wings, and was for years. And there's that little spot, you know, the little spot between the two benches. They have a little space in there. Sometimes the camera guy or analyst goes in there. Well, that's usually the photographer spot. So that's where he was. And it was Mike Hartman's first time playing in Detroit in front of his dad. His dad snapping pictures left and right. Must have went through 1,000 alone, just in a warm-up alone. And so Mike's excited. He's sweating like a dog. He goes back out there, and doesn't he score the nicest goal around the second period of the game? Top shelf snapper, boom, boom. His dad is snapping pictures. He's, you know, jumping around. The guys are all excited on the bench. He goes back to the face-off. Detroit sends out Bob Probert. So Bob Probert lines up beside Mike Hartman. He says a couple words to Mike Hartman. The puck drops. Mike Hartman drops his gloves, starts pounding on Bob Probert, and Bob realizes he's in a fight, and then, you know, starts throwing a couple back, and then they're in the penalty box, and we're looking over, and we see Mike Hartman doing this. And we're all looking at each other on the bench saying, what the hell's going on? And then we get in the dressing room after the second period, and we said, Mike, like, what happened? We saw you bow down. And he said, you won't freaking believe it. He said, what? Well, like, what the hell happened? He said, well, you know when Probert came out? He said, yeah. He said, well, you know when I dropped my gloves? Yeah. He says, well, in the penalty box, he told me, he says, what the hell you dropped your gloves for? He says, well, I thought you said you want to go. He says, no. He says, I said nice goal. So communication is very, very important. You know, we're in Toronto, and, you know, I don't know if you know Wendell Clark, but a lot of the guys know him here that we played with and against. And Wendell always, I don't know if you remember, but he had a bad back. So he would always get stretched out, you know, would have to see therapists and trainers and whatnot. So we're in a bar by accident one night, and it's after a game, and, you know, it rarely ever happened that we did go, but so he's doing, you know, this, and, you know, pulling and pushing and trying to work things out, you know, and we're like, what the hell is he doing? All of a sudden we see a girl go over, he says, and when we see her sending back, we went up to Wendell and said, Wendell, what happened? She says, well, she came up to me, she said, you were calling me over? She says, no, he says, I was just stretching. So ever since that time, anytime he stretches, and hey, Wendell, easy, there's no girls around, take it easy. Obviously, you can tell, like, we had a lot of fun and had a lot of great times as a player. And, you know, you can't play this game unless you're having fun. And I'm sure you people are all here because you really enjoy the game. And it's great to see. You know, as a coach, I had almost as much fun. It's not quite the same, but it's the closest thing. You know, you're there for a reason. You're there to help players realize their potential. You're there to help them build team chemistry. To lead them to a chance to become successful, both on and off the ice, because there's nothing that makes you more proud as a coach or an individual being involved in this game is to see these these athletes and these players not only realize maybe an opportunity to play at the higher levels, but also to walk away from the game and take away so many transferable skills that they're able to utilize in whatever walk of life they decide to pursue. And that is probably at times more important because you have so many more of those kinds of players. And that's why you got to take pride in each and every player that you do coach. You know, as a coach, we want them to learn things automatically. And, you know, we have to remember as coaches as well that it takes repetition to get things automatically, and it doesn't just happen, and that's why you need patience, and that's why you need persistence. So the analogy I can use is, how many people have driver's license? Okay, so you remember the first time you got in the car to drive the car. The hands are 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, the mirror's just right, the seat's upright, the radio's off. Boom, you're checking the mirror, you're nervous as hell, you got sweat pouring down, the brakes are kicking and starting, but you're getting it done. What happens 6 months later? You've got 2 hands on the wheel, the radio's full blast, you've got the arm around the babe, and the seat is reclined. It's automatic. And that's the same thing the players go through in the learning curve. They have to repeat it till it gets comfortable, and then it becomes automatic, just like driving a car. So remember that analogy anytime you start to lose your patience. Are we helping the players be their best? You know, Scott talked about helping the players. Are we doing that? You know, are we, really focused on making sure that the players are getting the best experiences? You know, this year I had a great experience, obviously, with Anaheim, working with a couple of great coaches, and Randy Carlisle and Dave Farish. Working with players like Teemu Selanne. I never realized the incredible passion that Teemu Selanne has to play the game. It's phenomenal. He is like the biggest kid on our team. He loves coming to the rink. He takes care of his body on and off the ice. He's an amazing athlete. He says all the right things at all the right times. A very unselfish player, and a very determined player, because he still takes pride in being one of the best players in this game. And we can learn so much from an individual like that. And I know that Ryan Getzlaf has learned a ton. And I know that Corey Perry was the Hart winner this year because he was, learning from a player like Teemu Selanne, had the benefit of being around him. And a young player like Cam Fowler. A young player like Cam Fowler was 18 years old. Not 40, 18 years old. And he's in the NHL, and he's dancing around that ice, and he's watching and learning and taking it all in, but becoming a great player, not only physically, but also mentally. Players all want and need discipline. They need to have structure and, a plan, a strategy, something that will allow them to excel and allow them a chance to win. My first meeting this past year, I did a penalty kill meeting. And after the meeting was over, one of the older players came up to me, and you talk about these lessons that you learn. He comes up to me and says, "Coach," he says, you gave us a couple things there to do with the penalty kill in this area. You said we can either try this or we can try this. He says, we need to know exactly what you want us to do. We need to know in detail how you want us to play that one thing that you want us to do. Your job as the coach, is to coach us and tell us exactly what we have to do. Our job as a player that we're going to be judged on is going out there and having the ability to do that job. So that is really important, and I learned a ton just from that meeting alone, and that was the first meeting of the year, and thank God he had the courage to come up and speak to me about that, because from that point on, I became a better coach, because I gave detail, exact things that I wanted them to do. Don't forget, I'm dealing with professionals here, professionals that are being paid highly to do a job. I can't send them to do a job in a gray area. I got to send them to do specifics that I'm expecting from them, so that when we go to engage and evaluate, we know if they've done it or not. We know if they're the reason why we weren't successful, or maybe they were the reason why we were. And we need that kind of feedback and evaluation. You have to show them that you care. We talk about that a ton as a coach. I had an incident a few years ago. I was coaching the Hershey Bears, and I had a player, a new player came in from the Calgary franchise, St. John, and he had been to a couple different teams, been a couple years in the league, I think about 5-6 years at that time. So when we got him, you know, we were thinking we're getting this monster of a guy. He was 6'4", he was 250 pounds, just a huge son of a gun, and we were going to make, you know, him such a great player. But he comes in about 3 or 4, maybe 2 weeks later, my captain and assistants walk into my room, and they said, "Coach, we got a big problem. This guy's an asshole. This guy's an idiot. He's selfish. He's rude. He's belligerent. You know, he all he thinks about is himself. It's awful." So I said, "Whoa, you know, let's try to get the root of the matter here." So those guys left. I called him into the room, and he sat down in front of me. You have to imagine this guy's 6'4", 250 pounds. He's solid rock, and but I know that there's got to be a problem. So. First thing I said, okay, you know, we've got a little issue here. We've got to make sure we talk about it before, you know, we go on. And he says, "What are you talking about?" He says, "There's no problem." I said, "Yes, there is. And you know what? We've got to find out what is bothering you." He says, "There's nothing bothering me." Look at it. I said, "Somebody pissed you off. Somebody lied to you. Somebody told you false truths. You know, somebody screwed with your mind here. What's going on?" And then he finally opened up after a little while and said, "Yeah," and started tearing up because he got really emotional. And he said, "Yeah, a lot of people have lied to me." He says, "I thought I was going to get an opportunity to be called up. They told me go down to the minors for a couple of weeks and get called up. I never did." He says, "You know, the coach down there says, you work for me, I'll give you a chance to get, you know, don't worry, we'll get you back up there." And he says, "And I did everything they asked me to do, and I did this and I did that, and I." And I said, "Well," I said, "we finally found out what the problem is." I said, "Your problem is that you are all about you. For you to be successful, you have to help all the other people around you realize their dream. Because the minute you start to do that, the minute you start working on someone else and helping them realize their dreams, then your dream comes true." And the very next day, no word of a lie, my captain and assistants walked back in the room. And they said, "Coach, what, I don't know what you did, but he's a great guy. You know, he's funny, he's good, he's with the guys, like he's hanging around with us now." And I said, "Well, no," I said, "it's got nothing to do with me." I said, "It's got everything to do with you three, because you showed him the way that he has to act and think around you guys. You're a team. You guys cared enough about him to let me know that we had an issue. And you guys were the reason why we were successful here in correcting this situation." That player then did make it to the NHL. He won 2 Stanley Cups, and he's still a broadcaster with one of the NHL teams. So credit the players, but make sure that you know and they know that you care. How can we get new kids to play the game? We have to understand we have a new market coming in. We have new immigrants coming in. Are we reaching out to them? You know, Scott talked about it a little bit earlier. We have to make sure we're doing a better job in that. Is minor midget hockey important? Is minor midget hockey something that we have to make sure that we address? You know, I think that there's lots of talk about it. Let's get it out in the open. Let's talk about, you know, the pros and cons. If the competition is, you know, using the minor midget level of hockey to draw those players that the juniors and the colleges are starting to look at, then we've got to make sure we're competing. We're Northern Ontario. We have to think about Northern Ontario. Are we missing the boat here? So let's talk about that. You know, off-ice officials, you know, the people that scorekeep and do all the things around the rink, not the referees or the players, but the off-ice officials. Do we have a training clinic for them? You know, is that something that we should consider having, so that we have young people that are in place to take over at certain times? And in any other areas that we need to address, we have to make sure we discuss as well. You know, I really believe we have to do a better job marketing our game as well. You know, we have some great role models here. Rebecca was here earlier, Tessa Bonham. You know, we could use billboards depicting them as, you know, talking about registration for minor hockey. hey, we got registration. Tessa Bonham and Rebecca is talking about registration for registration for the upcoming season. Upcoming clinics. Let's make sure we utilize people like that. Television ads, teaching parents that are new to the game or new to our country, and young kids of how to get started playing. Newspapers, internet. We're pretty fortunate. We got Stu Kernan, talks a lot about the game. We've got Randy Pascal, Sudbury Sports, does a great job, really marketing the local athlete, the northern flair of some of the athletes that we have in our community, and that's great. We need to do more of that. When I was a kid, I don't know if you guys all remember when you guys were kids, but they did talk a lot about, on a weekly basis, we had stats on every league in minor hockey. I haven't seen a stat in the newspaper regarding minor hockey in years. And that used to be a weekly thing. And you know what? Kids took pride in reading about themselves, stories about their team, and that's really important because we want kids to like what they do. Well, it builds pride and it builds respect and it builds awareness. And I think that, those are things that we've got to really look at doing a better job with. We want to glorify and show the positive sides or perspectives of the game. We have to market the benefits and the fun. Stu talked about my two boys that are in the game. I'm obviously blessed to have a couple of young guys that are pursuing their own careers in the game. I'm pretty proud of my two daughters too that are pursuing their own careers. One's in marketing and one's a teacher. So I'm equally proud of both, and it doesn't make them any more special because they're playing hockey. To me, they're still my kids, but so that'll never change. But I'm really proud of the fact that they're working so hard at realizing their opportunity now that they do have it. Last thing I can leave you is with this. We talk about what we don't know. You really don't know what you don't know until you get the opportunity to be with a group that you can learn from. And I hope that this was what it's all about, in the sense that you've learned a little bit more than what you knew before you came here. It opened up your mind a little bit to a different way of thinking. And we had a coaches clinic at the draft in Minnesota about a month ago. And we made a presentation to all the coaches. There are over 250 coaches. And it was talking about offensive face-offs from all three zones. And before we were done, we had put together 44 different offensive face-offs from all three zones, from the defensive zone, the neutral zone, and the offensive zone. And those are just offensive scoring opportunities from a face-off. There's so much to learn in this game, and we have to keep an open mind to realizing that we may think we know it all until we get in a room like this and we start really discussing how good this game can be and what new things we can bring back to our players. So I hope we keep learning every day and keep enjoying, and thank you for taking the time to care for hockey's future. Thank you.